Welcome to the Cultural Awareness series, where we merge the understanding of the term culture, both in human society and microbiology, by highlighting microbiologists you may have never heard of. Today, we will be learning about Kiyoshi Shiga. Dr. Kiyoshi Shiga was a Japanese physician and bacteriologist. He is best known as the discoverer of the bacterium that causes dysentery, which is a disease that is estimated to cause hundreds of thousands of deaths, particularly in children, per year. Shiga was born in 1871 in Sendai within northern Japan. He grew up during the Industrial Age, which was a particularly turbulent time during Japan, as the country transitioned to change. As a result, Shiga was raised by his maternal family and, in 1886, moved to Tokyo where he studied mathematics and German throughout high school. In 1892, Shiga entered the Tokyo Imperial University School of Medicine to work toward becoming a physician. During medical school, Shiga was mentored by Dr. Shibisaburo Kitasato, who worked closely with Robert Koch. Kitasato received international attention with his discoveries and contribution to medicine, including the isolation of the toxin produced by Clostridium tetani, the causative agent of tetanus, and advancements in immunotherapy techniques. Shiga was inspired by Kitasato and accepted a position as his research assistant at the Institute for Infectious Diseases upon completing Shiga's education. During his time studying infectious diseases, Shiga discovered and worked with the dysentery outbreak in 1897, where more than 90,000 cases were reported in Japan with a mortality rate of 30%. Dysentery is most common in developing countries, where poor sanitation leads to consumption of food and water contaminated with feces. At the time Shiga was studying the disease, the causative agent was unknown. It was suspected it was due to a microbe, so Shiga designed a study involving 36 dysentery patients. Following Koch's postulates, Shiga worked through a simple method to identify the organism that had up until that point eluded previous investigators. He successfully isolated the bacterium from the stool of the patients and found it to be the same bacterium across all those patients infected. Additionally, subcultures of the organism caused similar symptoms when introduced to dogs. This discovery came with the naming of this bacterium after its discoverer, Shigella dysenteriae. Shiga's findings, including his description of the Shiga toxin, was published. In the years following his discovery, Shiga focused his efforts on developing a vaccine for the disease and even used himself as a test subject. He was eventually able to develop an oral vaccine, but heavily emphasized the importance of public health practices to prevent future outbreaks. Later in his career, Shiga worked alongside Paul Ehrlich, the discoverer of Escherichia coli. Shiga worked on various projects in Ehrlich's lab, focusing on chemotherapy and treatments for various diseases. Shiga developed international recognition for his research. In particular, he presented his research in 1906 at the First Congress for Asian Tropical Medicine in the Philippines. Shiga later went to work with his mentor, Kitasato, at his newly formed Kitasato Institute, which is an institution that continues even today. Shiga then held various appointments at universities teaching medicine to students, and even served as president of Seoul University from 1929 to 1931. Toward the end of his career, he went back to studying infectious diseases at the Kitasato Institute alongside his mentor until 1945. After his retirement, Shiga completed his autobiography, as well as a Japanese language biography of his friend and mentor, Paul Ehrlich. His most notable quote is one that many scientists have since followed. Quote, "Follow the mentor's spirit, not the mentor's footsteps," end quote. Shiga passed away in 1957. His obituary in the New York Times stated that, quote, "He could be considered one of the 4 or 5 most eminent men in bacteriology in his most active years," end quote, and is remembered saying at a speech, reciting the words of Louis Pasteur, quote, "Persevere until the time comes when you have contributed in some way to the progress and good of humanity," end quote.